It's time for Political Buzz, the television forum to discuss politics and issues of interest for all of Western New York. Now, from the WBBZ television studio at the Eastern Hills Mall, this is Political Buzz.
And welcome to Political Buzz. On this edition, we'll be talking about election results, nationally, statewide, and locally. My guest today in the studio, Carl Palladino, and on the phone we'll be talking to Steve Pigeon, Democratic strategist who's in Iowa right now. Welcome, gentlemen, but before I get started, I wanted to do something that might be a little bit of a departure. I want to get into a subject that might seem like it's off topic, but nationally, there's been a lot of interest in zombies lately. Zombies. Video games, TV shows. The number one TV show on cable TV is The Walking Dead. Movies. Everything's about zombies lately. And our sophisticated research staff, our sophisticated research staff here at WBBZ found some footage that I think might be pertinent, might shed a little light on the subject. John, do we have that footage?
It's worse than horrible because a zombie has no will of his own. You see them sometimes walking around blindly with dead eyes, following orders, not knowing what they do, not caring.
You mean like Democrats?
That might explain the race for governor. Steve, it's just a joke. Don't hang up. Okay, well, let's talk about the reality. Let's talk about what happened in this midterm elections. Let's start out, Carl. It was a good night for Republicans nationally, but in New York State, it was the same story.
It wasn't the same story. For statewide races, it was, but the Republicans were lucky enough to hold on to the Senate, which gives them ostensibly 1/3 of the power of the government, and at least on its face, the Republican people in the state have gained something that they didn't have before. In order to control the Senate over the last term, they had to have Democrats join them and in a sense water down or in the interest of compromising with them, change what would otherwise be a Republican agenda. We're hoping now that this new Senate with the new people on it will, and all of them being Republican, will be able to carry the water of the Republican voters in the state and stop playing this rhino game that they've been playing historically. If we've achieved that, we've achieved quite a bit.
Now, was that a surprise? We had thought that the 60th district here might influence the balance of power. As it turns out, it was Long Island?
As it turns out, it was a few races in the Upper Hudson that did it. Amador, the lady's name was Sestaro or something like that, and Funk. They were the keys to turning it. Long Island held its own, and it's all been Republican historically. And from the perspective of the 60th, we lost the seat in what had been redistricted as a more conservative alliance of people. Actually, I mean, the hyper-liberal Panapino only received 34% of the vote. But it was split. The spoiler, by Grisanti staying in the race, he split with Stockard, who was the choice of the party in the primary, and he did that because Dean Skelos furnished him with quite a bit of money through other sources. They tried not to make it look like it was coming from Skelos, but they came out.
They directly
at him with
spent,
a lot
Carl.
of
Skelos directly put money behind Grisanti.
Yeah.
Well, Steve, he didn't win with a lot of votes. Did that race go pretty much as you expected it to go, or did you think?
If you remember the last show I was on, it went exactly what I thought that the base Democratic vote and the base working families vote, that as long as Stocker held, 28 to 30% of the vote on the Republican line, that there just isn't enough votes for an independent to squeak in from that bottom line. Which basically what you had is a very, odd year, and you had candidates, all three, with apparent weaknesses, and it came down to base party vote. And now, what Mark Panapino wins, he's got to, be a senator for the whole district and try to show that he can represent the whole district. It is a very different district because it does have some of the strong Democratic areas of the city, but it also has Tonawanda and Hamburg, Democratic towns, but they're a little more conservative Democrats. So he's got quite a challenge ahead of him. But I wouldn't celebrate too much if for the Republican state Senate because first off, you have several people in it that are in their 80s. And they represent districts that will be very competitive when they can no longer run. Senator Libous has some health issues. That district could be contested shortly.
Well, if we can keep him on life support at least for the next 2 years, what does that mean?
Tom is a terrific guy. He's a terrific guy, and I didn't mean to
There's nothing
apply.
Terrific about Libous. I mean, he's been
I don't
charged criminally.
See,
He should never have run. He's had a history of complicity with Cuomo, and
I just met Carl. I don't want to wish anybody ill health.
People, I think, just out of sheer loyalty, voted him in this time because he didn't really have any opposition.
My point is there'll be a real race there at some point, so I mean the Senate is really just it's a very thin ice, a 32-31 split.
But that's the reality, Steve. That's the reality for the next 2 years.
Right.
Barring.
What I was trying to say is that it may not be because you have several people that may not be able to serve out the term, and the other thing that no one's talking about is let's see where Preet Bharara goes too, because I know that there's open investigations about several sitting incumbents. So to say that I think it's still to be determined. That we could end up with a lot happening over this next 2 years.
So you're saying a win isn't necessarily a win, then? What you're saying
that hasn't been the history in that place for the last several cycles. So what I would say is that Carl will have his hands full in trying to keep the Hudson Valley Republicans and the downstate Republicans from being what he calls a rhino. Many of their campaigns, they already kind of moderated on the issues that Carl, you discuss a lot. So I think that to say that something's done because it's a 32-31, this is going to be a constant struggle by vote, by issue, and by the fact that a lot can happen as far as there could become open seats in that legislature. So that's going to be a continual battle. And I think nationally, what you see happened is historically what happens. The president, the party that has the presidency, ends up losing seats in the.
This goes beyond that, though. I think, Steve. You're right. Typically, the party in power, the presidential power, typically that party will lose. But this is kind of a historic race. I mean, there's several. There's a first African American woman elected to the Senate from one state, and there's the first woman elected from Iowa. There's a lot of precedent that is being set.
Sure, but the precedent is that it was historically, that is what is expected. Now, I think it was made worse because I think that the Obama White House clearly has fumbled their communications on both ISIS and the Ebola scare. They did not handle that correctly during campaign time, but they're historically up against a wave and a trend. But you can't read too much into what happens in 2016 because just like in 2010, everybody said, "Oh, he can't be reelected in 2012." You have a different electorate that comes out in 2016. It's a whole different electorate.
Don't you think that
different
the
demographic that votes? So this 2016 is going to be wide open, and of course it won't be Obama running. Already you see the torches passing to Hillary Clinton.
Steve, don't you think that the mood of the country basically there was a with the Obama White House, there was kind of an uncontrolled liberalism that kind of took over the agenda for the last 6 years, really. And
well, I obviously don't see it that way. I think he
you don't think
communicated
he's
very badly.
Unbridled
I think
liberal?
No, I don't think he's an unbridled liberal. But what I think that happened is, I don't think his communication skills in this last year and his governmental skills have really not been up to par. He's had a very bad year.
You're talking about one of the smoothest
but I don't think it's
talkers
because
in the
he's a
history of
liberal.
politics. This guy can talk. He could sell refrigerators to the Eskimos, as they say,
yes,
or ice to the
he's a very
Eskimos.
he's a very good campaigner, but I think what he's made a mistake on is he's been handling these problems that we face in the world and in the country. He's been handling them like a professor. He explains the complexities of it, and everything he's saying might be true, but he's not leading. And I think you need to have you need to come out and not just explain something as a commentator or as a professor or as an educator, but you need to lead. And I think he fell down on the way he handled the Ebola situation, which really isn't a crisis.
So Carl,
but he didn't handle it right, and he certainly didn't handle the ISIS situation.
He fell down on Benghazi. He fell down on the IRS. He fell down on everything. Yeah, but the people have suddenly come to a recognition that the press has been pulling the wool over their eyes, and this gamesmanship and illusion that's coming out of the White House has now suddenly turned to truth and facts, and we're seeing that this president is not capable. He's a terribly conflicted person who has an inability to make good, sound judgments from the advice that's given to him by professionals. He doesn't have a grasp on any sense of reality as to what the image of America has become in his foreign policy actions, and he's. I think the people in his administration are going to be bailing out left and right over the next few months. We're going to see them leaving. I think Panetta laid the groundwork for that. This president is toast. Unfortunately, on the Republican side, I don't see the leadership in McConnell and Boehner that it's going to take to make a great presentation in 2016. These two guys still think that the old establishment is what the people want to lead them, and they don't.
And Hillary Clinton is not Barack Obama, so I think he's actually, you could defend
Hillary
many
Clinton,
of the policy actions he's taking. He has not led and shown the way in explaining what he's doing and being seen as a strong leader in doing it. But that is a very complex situation over in the Middle East. He's had to deal with a lot of situations. The John McCain way, he would have had us, if you listen to John McCain, we'd be in 5 wars the last 2 years.
Okay, well, Steve,
so you need to use restraint.
We're out of time for
we're
this
not
segment.
talking about Hillary Clinton and the Republicans that are talking about running in 2016. I think she's going to be very strong and very formidable. She is a leader. You know what you get with her, and I think she's going to be a very formidable candidate.
We know where you're at, Steve.
Okay, Steve, that wraps it up for this segment. We're going to continue the discussion when we get back. We thank Steve for being with us on the phone.
Thank you, guys.
Take care, Steve. We'll see you next time in studio.